Greetings and salutations, everyone. I hope everyone is doing well today. Today I'm going to do something just a little bit different. Instead of doing just all Dogman, I'm going to do some different cryptids, including Dogman. Before we get into these encounters, though, a couple links I'd like to share with you. As you know, I rely on my Patreon, my PayPal, and my merch to help this channel to continue to grow and go. All of those links are in the description below. I also have a second channel for creepypastas, fanfiction, and scary voice acting. Stories that really don't fit on this channel. Now, if that's anything that you're into, follow that link and give those stories a listen. You may just like what you hear. Now, I've taken enough of your guys' valuable time. Let's get on with these terrifying cryptid encounters. Shall we? Today's first cryptid encounter. My father and mother both came from different backgrounds. My father was raised in a Christian family, and my mother was raised in her Navajo traditions. The term skinwalker, or Ye-Natalushi in Navajo, is something my father has never heard before or believed in. I believe this took place in the 80s when my father was in his mid-30s and was staying at my grandfather's place for the weekend along with my mother. The dogs were barking very aggressively at once, as if there was a true threat just outside of the home. My father thought they would eventually stop, but they didn't. He got up from his bed, still half asleep, and walked over to the window to find out what they were barking at. He peeked out the first time, but didn't see anything out of the ordinary. He then moved the curtains to the side a bit more to get a wider sight of the area, and about 50 feet from the window, he could see a black figure digging in the ground. He suddenly realized the figure had the shape of a human, but couldn't quite make out a face. My father continued to try and focus his attention on what he was looking at, having just woken up. But as soon as he realized the face didn't look normal, the figure stopped digging and immediately looked in my father's direction. My father froze as the figure still stayed hunched over to the ground. My father said he felt paralyzed and found it difficult to even let out a breath. The figure rapidly turned its attention back to the hole it was digging. My father whispered to my mother to get up and that there was something outside. My mother had bad vision at the time and had to look for her glasses once she got off the bed. As soon as she ran to the window, the figure ran off, and my mother said she was only able to catch a glimpse of its backside before it was too dark to make out the rest of the figure. That was my father's first encounter with what may have been a skinwalker. He describes it as looking like a Kachina doll. In Arizona and New Mexico, many stores sell these figures, so anytime my father sees them on the shelves, it takes him right back to that night. If you Google Kachina doll, it will be a reference to how my father described the figure. The only thing my father really said is that it had some sort of fur around its neck with blue face-typed mask. Usually, when someone begins to describe a skinwalker, it always has an animal feature. Today's second encounter. Hello, I'm a 19-year-old male from the state of Kentucky. I'm a college student, and my fiancée lives back in my hometown 3 hours away. One night late, I decided I wanted to go home and spend the weekend with her after work. My clothes and other necessities already packed, I departed for the long drive. Now, this is Kentucky, mind you. We are in the deepest reaches of the Appalachian Mountains, so the drive isn't exhilarating. Lots of trees, small roads, and hills with not much else. I'd been driving for about an hour and 15 minutes when I came behind a vehicle. It was moving at a decent speed, so I wasn't jumping to pass it. For about 2 miles, I traveled behind said vehicle, an SUV. All of a sudden, something emerged from the trees. It was so fast that it looked like it teleported. The creature was big, with black and brown fur coating it, but its most defining feature was its wings. It wrapped around the entire back of the car. Just as quickly as it came, the creature disappeared in the opposite direction. Came from east, jumped, flew into the trees to the west. I watched as the car slammed on their brakes and pulled over, but I had already called my fiancé, was having a panic attack, and speeding over 100 miles an hour, so I had no instinct to stop and chat. My question is, with how close I am to West Virginia, did I see the Mothman? Today's third encounter. This happened when I was 15 and out hunting with my father and one of his friends from work. We'll call him Frank for the purposes of this story. He was a lot more experienced with hunting than we were. It was an archery javelina hunt nearby Crown King. We got pretty lucky coming up on a squadron of javelina as we were driving to our campsite, so we stalked them for a little while, and Frank managed to get a shot on one, but lost it in the brush after following the blood trail for a few hours. After our failed attempt of searching, we made our way back to our designated campsite and set up the camp. It was around 3 in the afternoon, so we decided to call it a day. That night, as I laid in my sleeping bag next to my dad, Frank slept in a separate tent next to ours. It was a quiet night, which was to be expected, since the deserts of Arizona are usually very quiet. I woke up around what I would assume like 1 in the morning, hearing walking around our tent. Figuring it maybe was a javelina, or maybe a deer, I just lied there and listened, waiting for it to go away. One sound broke the silence, though, and scared the shit out of me. Clear as day, right outside of our tent, you could hear a loud back, like someone yelling for someone to back away. It was aggressive, and it caught the attention of my father, who stayed quiet. The silence resumed again, and maybe 39 seconds later, almost like a recording on a tape player, we heard it again. Back! In different circumstances, we would have walked out to see what was going on. But everything was too quiet. No struggle like a guy fighting a man or an animal. Just him yelling back. This continued for maybe another 5 minutes, him occasionally yelling again, but soon the yells got quieter and we knew the man had walked away. I didn't sleep the rest of the night. I just lied there in silence, looking at the zipper to our tent, half expecting someone to start to unzip it. Thankfully enough, that never happened. It had to be an hour before someone finally broke the silence. It was my father. What the fuck? We didn't leave the tent till we could clearly see the sun in the sky before we heard Frank exit his tent before saying the coast was clear. He obviously being awake for the whole incident. He looked just as shaken as we were. We started a fire and my father drank some coffee and we just stood there in silence, still trying to comprehend what we had heard a few hours ago. Frank had finally piped up about it. I saw it. The fucker had to be at least 7 feet tall. Unlike our tent, Frank's tent was more for the summer and made for a better bug net than a tent. You could clearly see out of the top of the tent since there was nothing more than a visor. That's how he was able to see it. After a little bit of thinking, we decided to end our hunt there, seeing how I was pretty shaken up by this, and really didn't feel comfortable about being out there. A few years now have passed, and I'm 18 at this point, and my family and Frank had gotten together to talk and hang out. It was at this point he had told me something he hadn't said on that trip, trying not to scare me. He said that when he saw it, its face was pale white, like computer paper white. It was at least 7 or 8 feet tall as well. Today's fourth encounter is a Dogman encounter. My first encounter was when I was young, trying to fall asleep. I looked out of the window and saw it. Out towards the backyard faced my window at the time. Nowadays, I sleep in the basement. Back to topic, my brother and I always felt nervous looking out that window. My bed perfectly faced the window at the time. The beast was 3 feet away, looking into my window. It had yellow eyes, a long snout of a dog, black fur. Its face is kind of human, subtract the snout and its gnarly long teeth, and fur all over its face. Once it realized I noticed it, it snarled at me, quietly through the window, and it was a stare-down. I slowly pulled the covers over my head. I then proceeded to cry for what felt like forever. Then I ran to my parents' room crying. They told me it was just a dream. I thought that for what was about 8 years until my sophomore year in high school when my brother, my friend, and I were out fishing. My brother loved peanut butter at the time. He brought a plate with a giant serving spoon glob and some Ritz crackers. There's a creek back there, surprisingly some decent fish. Mostly chub, but there's bullhead, carp, greenbelly sunny, crayfish, snapping turtles, brown trout, but that's a really rare catch out there. A giant fallen oak tree, which acted like a natural bridge across the creek. It fell due to the amount of snow, one bad snowstorm. My friend and I went down the stream one summer's day. Meanwhile, my brother was fishing alone. He went to go take a leak, and he left his food on the other side of the creek. When he came back, he saw it running off with his plate. He described it more like a Bigfoot. He ran to us in hysterics. We just thought he was crazy, so we started calling him Crazy Joey. After that, though, I thought about my run-in with something similar at that young age, the stare-down. Later, my friend was busy with lawn work and prepping to move. I was secretly too afraid to go out. Joe decided to go back out a month later. He left by himself. I wish I could have went with him to confirm his story, but the second time around I believe him for sure. He was catching some fish, his line was all screwed up, and he took it off his pole and respooled it and came back to the house because he only had one hook. He ran back and claimed he saw the same thing chasing a bird that was wrapped up. He yelled and scared it. Then he ran back home for his knife as fast as he could to cut the bird free. I seen something similar to my sighting. My brother, my friend, and some others were going fishing at this illegal spot. We didn't know it was private property at the time. Whenever me and my friends try out a new spot, we have a tradition, casting bass lures first, then we use normal live bait. I wanted to hesitate because the fish were biting. They're pretty good at the creek. So sure enough, they went ahead of me and crossed the old oak tree towards the quarry. I felt alone after 12 minutes, so I took my bag, my 2 poles, and tackle. I started walking, and I saw what I thought to be a big gray wolf, easily waist-high to me. In Roscoe, Texas, anything's possible. My friend got cornered by 4 coyote out there once. But sure enough, the creature by another giant oak tree and I made contact again. Another stare down. Only different since this one was on all fours. It was obviously interested in my friends since it was following the trail they went down. I yelled and chased it. The look on its face was playful because it was probably pretending not to notice me, so I chased it to the clearing. The retention ponds were on the left and a small prairie on the right. It seemingly went towards the prairie. Sure enough, I quickly forgot when one of my friends caught a big largemouth that weighed 3.5 pounds on the first cast. I waited until we were going to leave and to inform them because I didn't want to ruin the fact that we were catching bass on every cast. I told everybody about what I saw, but they didn't believe me. We never went back to that spot because a guard, when we were leaving, warned us to get out of there because it was private property. The last time I saw anything similar, my brother and I were scavenging for roadkill when we saw this big black dog. It looked at us and took off running, moving gracefully through the brush. Meanwhile, my brother and myself were getting absolutely torn up by the raspberry bushes. We catch up and it'd wait and it'd run again. We did this for maybe 5 times, then the thing just disappeared and we couldn't find it again. I live in Roscoe, Texas, and I enjoy being outside. I notice strange things out in the woods. We scavenge for roadkill and drag 'em off into the prairie for the coyotes, or maybe for these things. There are lots of deer, turkey, rabbits. You can even hear the coyotes get excited when they catch a poor rabbit at night. Alright, guys. 4 encounters. That last Dogman encounter I've been sitting on for a long time. First, because it was very hard to read. It wasn't written very well. I wanted to share that with you because of the playfulness this person had. Not the first time it encountered it. It definitely wasn't playful. But last night a subscriber reached out to me, and I've been meaning to get to this subscriber and talk with her about her encounters. But I've been so busy with everything going on. But she reached out to me very excited. She lives out in New Hampshire and pretty close to the Maine border, and stated that she had seen a juvenile Dogman about the size of a 10-year-old boy, so a pup. Apparently they had been grilling outside, and this thing smelled the food and came looking. She said when she saw it, she made a noise and it looked at her, and then a dog barked and it took off. It was very emotional for her to see this. She said she actually almost felt like she wanted to cry, not out of fear, but out of excitement. It's very seldom that you see a pup. I've only heard of maybe one other encounter. She said it was bipedal, and then when it took off after the dog barked, it was on all fours. I will be getting in touch with her very, very soon and getting her encounters to share with you, because just from what I've gotten so far, it is very amazing. So that's why I wanted to share that last Dogman encounter, because so rarely do we get a Dogman encounter that there's playfulness or they're not angry, so to say. Because they are an animal. I mean, so to say. And they do have feelings. You know, who's to say that the excitement, you know? I mean, I don't know the last part of their encounter. Maybe it was leading them into the prairie to, you know, fuck them up or something, but I don't know. Every once in a while I think about, you know, what if they are friendly? What if there's a couple that are friendly? You know, wouldn't it be so interesting? You know, the what ifs. I don't know. The first encounter was just amazing. Definitely a skinwalker. If you've never Googled that kind of doll, Google it. It is identical to what a traditional Navajo would wear during their ceremonial dances. Very interesting. The second encounter, whoa, I do not like cryptids that fly. They scare the fucking shit out of me. More than no. Skinwalkers just fucking fuck with my head terribly. But a flying cryptid that's humanoid, just fucking Jeepers Creepers, man. That movie just, God, I still can't watch that movie just because it's creepy. The last encounter, or the second to last, excuse me. Wow. At first, when I first read it, I was like, wow, definitely a skinwalker, you know? Then the pale white, it still could have been a skinwalker. It could have been in the middle of transformation, or it could have been a crawler. For those that don't know what a crawler is, or those who are new to the channel, I refer to those creatures that people call that creepypasta creature, the rake, a crawler. The rake is a creepypasta. Anyway, they're called crawlers. That's what I call them. And I don't like calling them rakes because I'm not a creepypasta channel. So I think that was either a skinwalker or some sort of crawler. What do you guys think? Back to the second encounter, I think that could have possibly been the Mothman. But Jesus Christ, Jesus, Jeepers Creepers. Just the name, Jesus Christ, Jeepers Creepers. Ah, God, I'm recording right now as I'm talking, and I've got my eyes closed. For some reason, when I record or when I ramble, I close my eyes. And I just keep envisioning that one shot in the movie when Jeepers Creepers, or whatever it's called. I don't even know. Is that what they call it? Is it Jeepers Creepers, or is that the movie? Anyway, when that goddamn thing stares at you and it smiles with those fucked up looking teeth, man. Oh, God. God. I'm going to have nightmares now. You know, the medicine that I'm on right now. I've been having weird nightmares. Last night I dreamt someone broke into my house and had my shotgun. And I had to defend my house with my PC carbine. Oh, very weird dream. Very weird. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed these encounters as much as I enjoyed sharing them with you. And with that, guys, I'm going to bid you farewell. And always remember, if you guys are happy, everybody around you will be happy.